Hey everyone, this is Cameron from SpeedCubeShop.com, and today we're going to be comparing the new DianSheng series with the MeiLong magnetic series. Let's go ahead and take a look. So upon first look, these are very similar. To be frank, DianSheng pretty much completely copied the MeiLong series. So going over the stats really quickly, what's interesting is that in a way, the DianSheng series actually one-upped the MeiLong series, mainly because it's pretty much all $1 more expensive than the MeiLong series is, and interestingly enough, the 4x4 and 5x5 are 1mm larger than the 4x4 and 5x5 from the MeiLong series. So initial impressions in terms of box quality is they feel pretty similar, and I guess while I'm cracking these open, we'll talk a little bit about the specs. So the 2x2 from the DianSheng series is $7.95, while the MeiLong version is $6.95. And the 3x3 from the DianSheng series is $6.95, while the MeiLong is $6.95. And the 4x4 and 5x5 come in at $11.95 and $12.95 for the DianSheng, and for the MeiLong, $10.95 and $11.95 respectively. So finally, I have them all out of the box, and one thing I did want to point out that just shows the extent that DianSheng went to copy the MeiLong series is looking at the boxes, not only is the outside about the same, but they both come with a cube stand inside, and they even have this like little accessory box, which I presume has the same thing as screwdriver, so I just went through a ton of effort to get these two boxes out. So let's see. Comparing, they both say accessories box. They both have the brand. The color is, I think, identical actually, which is pretty impressive. Only difference being that the MeiLong one has a slight little background design. DianSheng one's also a little bit smaller. DianSheng one comes with this kind of, I don't know, similar but different screwdriver, while the MeiLong one has this like kind of ridges on it. So, but other than that, I mean, pretty much identical. And DianSheng one has a solve guide. MeiLong one has solve guide and one of their cards. Actually, yeah, solve guide and one of their cards. And I'd be more inclined to trust MeiLong's solve guide than DianSheng. So again, I guess it just shows that the MeiLong series was so good that DianSheng took a lot of inspiration, if you will. So let's go ahead. Cube stands. Man, even the cube stands are like the same design. I mean, if you look at this, you can see the DianSheng one is like cut out just like the MeiLong one is. I mean, it's comical how like the lengths that DianSheng went to just not even add in a cube stand, but no, it has to be a cube stand in the same exact design as the MeiLong one. So we'll see. I haven't really messed with the DianSheng ones too much. And I know that with the MeiLong being the most popular budget series right now, I thought it'd be a really interesting comparison. So let's go ahead and get into the cubes. I'm gonna do it as like a battle royale, one-on-one. So let's go ahead and start off with the 2x2s first from each category. Okay, so looking at the 2x2s, they are gonna both be the same size at 50mm. Again, the DianSheng one is $7.95, while the MeiLong is $6.95. Weight-wise, the DianSheng one is 13 grams more at 67 grams, while the MeiLong one is 54 grams. So when you're just speed solving, it's gonna be very hard to tell apart the weight difference. They do feel pretty similar in my hand, but if you're that particular, may matter. Looking at the color schemes, not exactly the same. The MeiLong series being a little bit lighter, kind of all across the board, but they're very close. So if you like the MeiLong colors, I don't think that the DianSheng ones are gonna be much different. I actually do prefer the DianSheng shades a bit more because those slightly darker colors are gonna be a bit more bright and more vivid. Let's go ahead and do first turns with the MeiLong one first because I'm more familiar with that one. Very dry out of the box. Turning speed is pretty reasonable, about kind of like a medium speed. Magnet strength is I would say light. DianSheng one. Big difference in turning feel. I do prefer the feel of the DianSheng 2x2. It's a lot faster out of the box and has a more smooth feel, whereas the MeiLong feels like a little bit more clacky. Magnet strength wise, DianSheng is definitely stronger at like a moderate strength magnet. Let's go ahead and compare corner cutting. I think that out of the box, the MeiLong is a bit better, but by a very slight amount. When you try to go to 45, you really see the difference between the DianSheng and the MeiLong, but I do think that with lubrication and tensioning, this could be a little bit more of a close comparison. All right, with the 2x2s out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the 3x3s. So immediately, I do see the biggest difference between the 3x3s. I think the most distinguishing factor being this different kind of center cap look on the DianSheng. It has this very unique, kind of old school almost design. I think it's mainly just for probably weight savings because I don't know why else they would do this. It's not very easy to remove if you don't have long fingernails, so you definitely are gonna need like a little screwdriver or a flathead or something like that to get it out. Definitely the MeiLong is a lot more convenient in terms of the cap. You can just kind of get your finger underneath there and pop it off, assuming that yours is loose enough out of the box to do so. Color scheme wise, the DianSheng's white actually looks a little bit more dirty than the MeiLong one does, which I guess is actually kind of the same thing for the 2x2 now that I'm looking at them. So again, I think that plastic wise, I'm not gonna go over the color schemes again because it's gonna be the same throughout the 2x2 through 5x5, but comparing the size, the DianSheng is 55.5 millimeters, while the MeiLong is 56 millimeters. So a very slight difference in size. The weight of the DianSheng is 68 grams, while the Mofeng Jiaoshi MeiLong is 72 grams. So again, DianSheng is a little bit lighter on this one, whereas the MeiLong is a little bit heavier. The MeiLong, it doesn't really feel that much heavier in your hand, but the weight feels more centered into the core, while the DianSheng one just feels kind of a more even distribution of weight. A little bit more towards the outside if I had to pick a bias. Turning wise, the DianSheng is very kind of like loose feeling. I mean, it's very flexible out of the box. It has this kind of unique, like wannabe honeycomb, like inspired design on the pieces. I do like the turning speed, and I kind of like the clacky feel because it reminds me of older cubes, whereas the MeiLong is a lot more like smooth and stable, and it's not nearly as loose out of the box. I think that when it comes to speed solving and looking for good times, the MeiLong is the one to get for me personally, whereas the DianSheng is more of like an enjoyable feel. Again, the DianSheng is currently at $6.95 for the 3x3, while the MeiLong is also at $6.95. So they are gonna be the same price. It's mainly just a preference thing. Looking at corner cutting, the DianSheng can do 45 degrees with relative ease out of the box. The MeiLong actually struggles a bit more on the corner cutting than the DianSheng one does. It can still do it pretty easily, but as you can see, it just depends on how well tensioned the cube is out of the box. Because on some sides, I'm not even able to get it remotely close to 45. Where on the DianSheng, pretty much all sides can almost do the 45, whereas like the green, for example, is having some issues. So ultimately, this one's a really hard decision between the two. I do think that I like the turning feel of the DianSheng more and the corner cutting and just the kind of like more casual feel, but I do think that the MeiLong's smooth, reliable feel is probably gonna be better for me if I were like competing or, like I said, going for time. Magnet strengths on the MeiLong are about the same. The DianSheng is a little bit lighter, but I would still say that while the DianSheng is in like the light category, the MeiLong is more so in the moderate strength. So it's kind of interesting how that changed from the 2x2s to the 3x3s. All right, so for this one, I'm having a really tough time deciding. I think I'm gonna ultimately pick the MeiLong on this one just because of the reliability factor. So for the 4x4, the Mofeng Jiaoshi is 59 millimeters, while the DianSheng is 60. The weight of the Mofeng Jiaoshi is 109 grams, while the DianSheng is 111. So almost the same weight. Sizing wise, I do like the smaller feel of the MeiLong, but the 60 millimeters for the DianSheng is not bad. The turning of the DianSheng is good. Very kind of fast, kind of the same as the 2x2. The only thing that I'm not really liking that I see about the DianSheng is there's a lot of, like the center pieces are hollow, which can contribute to lockups a bit more. Whereas on the MeiLong, it's, I guess it is the same thing on the MeiLong. So actually very interesting that actually looked like the same thing. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to take these apart because looking at these, it looks very similar in terms of piece design. So I almost wonder if it's almost the same piece design, just a different size. Comparing the inner layers and the outer layers, the MeiLong has a way smoother feel, and this time around the turning speed is not that much different than the DianSheng is, which I really like. On a bigger cube, this kind of fast, clacky feel isn't really my taste. It makes it a little bit harder to control, easier to lock up, and kind of just overturn. Whereas the MeiLong, between the compact size, smoother turning, fast yet controllable, is a little bit more comfortable for me. Corner cutting, the MeiLong can do a piece with ease. DianSheng is about the same. So ultimately, it really just comes down to a size preference between the two. The DianSheng 4x4 is $11.95, while the MeiLong is $10.95. So like I mentioned, you are paying that dollar extra to get the bigger size. So if you have bigger hands, you might want to go for the DianSheng one. You could use a lubricant like Nebula or Galaxy to kind of slow it down a bit, make it a little bit more smooth and controllable. Whereas the MeiLong though, kind of out of the box, feels pretty good. I would probably use something like Martian on this to maybe speed it up just a hair if that's what your turning preference is. So I think I forgot to actually talk about the 4x4 magnet strength comparison. The MeiLong is about moderate on the inners, light on the outers. DianSheng is incredibly light on the inners, while the outers are still pretty light. So the MeiLong does have the stronger magnets between the two. So last but not least, we're gonna be taking a look at the 5x5s. So for the 5x5s, it's the same as the 4x4s. The Mofeng Jiaoshi is 1 millimeter smaller. So this one's at 60 millimeters, while the DianSheng is at 61 millimeters. Weight of the MeiLong is 108 grams, while the weight of the DianSheng is 118. The DianSheng is $12.95, while the MeiLong is $11.95. So you have that dollar difference in price again. I still do say that I like the smaller feel that the MeiLong bigger cubes offer over the DianSheng, and that's coming from someone who does have bigger hands. I used to prefer the bigger size, but over time I've kind of gotten to get used to the smaller cubes a little bit. Turning wise, the 5x5 actually feels really nice. It kind of has that same fast feel as the MeiLong does, or as the 4x4 does, excuse me. Whereas the MeiLong 5x5 is a lot tighter and a lot slower out of the box. It takes substantially more effort to turn the 5x5, which I do not really like. In terms of magnet strength, the DianSheng feels very light throughout the inner and outer layers, while the MeiLong is actually even lighter on the inner layers. The inner layers magnets for the MeiLong are borderline non-existent. They're so light, and the outers are not that much stronger. Corner cutting, again, about a piece, which is usually what you can expect from bigger cubes that are in this price range. The DianSheng does have an easier time cutting that one piece versus the MeiLong. Ultimately, between the two, I think I would choose the DianSheng, actually, despite the bigger size. I just think that the turning feel and the magnet strength is just a lot more enjoyable than the MeiLong one is. Now, again, keep in mind, this is without lubricant and adjustment, so if you were to lubricate the MeiLong, I'm sure that it would be pretty close to this, but that kind of inherent, natural, kind of swishy feel and ease of turning is really appealing to me with DianSheng. So my final thoughts between the DianSheng and the MeiLong series is kind of mixed. I mentioned earlier about the pieces maybe being very similar or even the same. It turns out that they are very similar, but they are slight differences. The biggest thing being that the DianSheng series has some like piece designs on them, like on the 2x2 and the 3x3 has kind of a honeycomb inspired design, whereas the 4x4 and 5x5 kind of have some like lines on them, whereas the MeiLong series appears to be pretty much completely smooth. So I think that is one of the biggest differences and why we're getting that kind of different turning feel with the DianSheng over the MeiLong series. One thing to really consider when comparing these two is price. I mean, they're pretty much the same price, only being $1 different for most of them. And I think the biggest thing that you're gonna wanna look at when shopping for these two is gonna be what your turning preference is. If you like faster, looser feeling cubes, I think that you're gonna wanna go for the DianSheng series. If you prefer the smoother, more controllable, smaller cubes, the MeiLong is gonna be the series for you. Now the plus side with all of this is they're both incredibly cheap, so if you wanna try them both, you definitely can. If you have both series, let me know what are your thoughts. I'm really curious kind of what the community is feeling about this whole new player in the game, because DianSheng hasn't really had a SpeedCube release in a long time. So very interesting to see them kind of come back on the scene with this new budget series. I am wondering if they're gonna be doing more cubes in the future. Be very curious to see what comes out from the DianSheng factory in the near future. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you're looking to pick up either the DianSheng or MeiLong series, I'll have links in the description box down below. And yeah, looking forward to reading your guys' comments and seeing you on the next video. Thanks. You should leave that in there.